That email from your boss lands like a punch to the gut. Your heart races, your face flushes, and a wave of anger and shame washes over you. We have all been there, paralyzed by harsh words. But what if that very pain could become your most powerful fuel? The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote that the obstacle to action advances action, and what stands in the way becomes the way. This is the core promise of Stoicism. It offers more than just thick skin. It provides a complete mental framework to not just endure criticism, but to actively leverage it for unstoppable motivation and profound personal growth. By the end of this, you will possess a practical playbook to transform every critical comment into a stepping stone. How will you learn to see the hidden gift in your next moment of criticism? The first and most crucial step in dealing with criticism is to apply the Stoic Dichotomy of Control. This ancient tool slices any difficult situation into two clear categories: what is up to us and what is not. The philosopher Epictetus opens his manual for life, the Enchiridion, with this very distinction. He states that our own opinions, impulses, desires, and aversions are within our power. What is not in our power are our body, our property, our reputation, and our public offices. In short, the actions of others fall squarely into that second column. The critical email, the harsh comment, the disapproving look, these are all external events. They are facts that happen in the world, and you have zero control over their occurrence. Your power begins and ends with your judgment of that event and your subsequent reaction. This is your internal territory, a space you fully command. Picture receiving a performance review that points out several areas for improvement. The words on the page, your manager's opinion, even the fact that the review happened at all, these are all externals. They are outside your control. What is within your control is your initial internal gasp, the decision to take a deep breath, and the choice to read the feedback with curiosity instead of defensiveness. You control whether you dismiss it outright or sift through it for a single useful grain of truth. You control the hours you might choose to spend improving a skill mentioned in the review. Think back to a recent criticism that stung. Now mentally pull it apart. The other person's words and their tone of voice, that was their domain, an external event you could not stop. Your feelings of anger, the story you told yourself about what their criticism meant, and how you ultimately responded, that was all your territory. By drawing this line, you reclaim your power from the situation. You stop being a victim of external events and start being the author of your response. This mental separation is your first line of defense, turning a chaotic emotional storm into a manageable set of choices. What if every piece of criticism, no matter how harsh, was actually a gift? This is not about passive acceptance, but an active, almost radical embrace. The Stoics called this concept Amor Fati, the love of one's fate. It is the decision to welcome every event, especially the difficult ones, as essential ingredients for your growth. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." See criticism not as an attack to be extinguished, but as fuel thrown into your inner fire. It is material to be consumed and transformed into light and heat, making you stronger and brighter in the process. This mindset shift turns the entire dynamic of feedback on its head. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "How can this happen for me? How can this make me better?" Consider the story of Thomas Edison. He faced relentless criticism and public doubt throughout his quest to invent a practical electric light. Skeptics called his efforts a fantastic dream. Instead of being crushed by this external noise, he reportedly reframed it. He did not see 10,000 failures, he found 10,000 ways that did not work. Each critical comment, each failed attempt, was not a verdict on his ability, but a necessary piece of data guiding him toward the ultimate solution. He loved the process, including the setbacks, because he knew they were part of the path to success. This is Amor Fati in action. Now, bring this back to your own life. Think of one specific criticism you have received recently, the one that maybe still smarts a little. Instead of focusing on the sting, ask yourself one powerful question. What is one potential benefit or lesson hidden within those words? Maybe it revealed a blind spot in a skill you assumed you had mastered. Perhaps it highlighted a communication habit that unintentionally pushes people away. Or it could simply be training your resilience, teaching you to hear difficult things without crumbling. By searching for that single hidden gift, you are not agreeing with the criticism wholesale. You are simply practicing the art of loving your fate, of finding the fuel in the feedback. You are starting to see that the obstacle is indeed the way. Think of your mind as a fortified castle, a place of immense strength and security. The criticism you face is like the weather outside the walls. The rain can fall, the wind can howl, but within the castle you are safe, dry, and in command. The Stoics called this the Inner Citadel, an unshakable core built on your character and your reason. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations that your soul should be like a citadel, for what can be more impregnable than a soul that guards its own logic and reason with perfect tranquility? This is not about building walls to hide from the world, but about constructing a foundation so solid that no external event, no harsh word can topple you. Your worth is no longer tied to the opinions of others because it is built on the internal standards you have chosen for yourself. You define what it means to be a good person, a skilled professional, a loyal friend. When your self-assessment is rooted in your own virtues like integrity, effort, and kindness, the shouts from outside the walls simply lose their power. They become background noise. Consider a public figure who operates with quiet purpose despite a constant storm of public scrutiny. They are not swayed by every trending opinion or negative headline. Their focus remains on their mission, on the work they believe in, because their sense of purpose comes from within. Their inner citadel is strong. They judge themselves by their own code, not by the ever-shifting court of public opinion. Now take a moment to look within your own walls. What are the principles that form the bedrock of your character? Make a mental list of 3 internal values you hold that no external criticism can ever diminish. Perhaps it is your unwavering honesty, your commitment to always do your best, or your deep capacity for empathy. These are your treasures guarded safely inside. No critical comment can strip you of your integrity if you refuse to compromise it. No harsh review can take away the fact that you gave your full effort. When you know this to be true, you are truly free. You can listen to feedback without fear because your entire sense of self is not on the line. You can sift through the noise, find any useful truth, and let the rest blow past you like a gust of wind against a stone fortress. Stoicism asks us to strip away the emotional charge and see the criticism for what it objectively is. This is the discipline of objective judgment, a deliberate pause between the sting of the words and your reaction to them. The philosopher Epictetus gave us the master key to this practice when he wrote that men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. The criticism itself is just a thing, a set of words. The disturbance, the anger, the hurt, that comes entirely from the view you choose to take. Your task is to set that initial, emotional view aside and put on the lens of a calm investigator. You are not dismissing the feedback, you are auditing it for its true value. Start by analyzing the source. Who is this critic and what is their intent? Is this a manager with deep expertise who has a track record of developing their team? Or is it a stranger online or a colleague known for careless comments? This is not about dismissing people, but about weighing the credibility of the information. A master chef's opinion on your cooking carries a different weight than that of a random passerby. Then examine the content itself. Is the feedback specific and actionable, like your report lacked clear data on the third quarter projections? Or is it a vague personal attack, like you are just not a strategic thinker? Specific criticism, even when hard to hear, contains seeds of improvement. Vague condemnation is often just emotional noise. Finally, assess the intent. Was this feedback given with the clear purpose of helping you grow, or was it delivered to belittle or assert power? A genuine desire to help often comes with constructive suggestions, not just a list of faults. Picture this scenario. Your manager calls you into a meeting and says your presentation to the client was disorganized and lacked a clear through line. Your immediate emotional view might be one of defensiveness and shame, but now apply objective judgment. Your manager is an experienced professional who has led successful client projects for years. The feedback is specific, pointing to organization and narrative flow. It was delivered in a private setting, not in front of the whole team, suggesting an intent to correct, not to humiliate. Objectively, this is not a personal attack on your intelligence. It is a specific, expert assessment of a work product, given with the probable intent of helping you improve. The view you take shifts from this is an indictment of my ability to. This is valuable data about my presentation skills. Now take a moment and bring this into your own world. Recall a piece of criticism that recently bothered you. Can you rephrase it now, stripping away all the emotional language and your personal feelings about the person who said it? Turn it into a simple, neutral statement of fact. Instead of "my coworker said I was rude in the meeting because he does not like me," the objective statement becomes, "My coworker stated that I interrupted him 3 times during the Tuesday morning meeting." Do you feel the difference? The first version is a story filled with blame and assumption. The second is just a report of an event, clean and clear. It is from this place of clarity that you can make a powerful choice. You can decide if that factual event is something you wish to change, or if it is simply someone else's opinion to be let go. This is how you stop being a prisoner of your first impression and become the master of your final judgment. Let's zoom out for a moment and use the Stoic view from above on this situation. Imagine you are rising high above the earth, looking down on your city as a map of tiny lights. You see your own neighborhood, then the entire country, then the whole planet hanging in the vast, silent darkness of space. Now bring that perspective down to your specific moment of conflict. That critical email, that harsh comment in the meeting, it is happening in one room, on one street, in one city on this immense globe. Marcus Aurelius constantly practiced this exercise, reminding himself to frequently contemplate the swiftness of the passage and departure of all things in the cosmos. He would think of the countless people who once fought for fame, now long forgotten, their triumphs and criticisms turned to dust. This is not meant to make your life feel insignificant, but to make your problems feel manageable. In the grand theater of time and space, that one piece of feedback is a single, fleeting line in a play that has been running for billions of years. Its power to derail your entire day, your self-worth, suddenly seems disproportionate. Apply this the next time a hurtful message lands in your inbox. Before you type a reactive reply, close your eyes for just 10 seconds. See the email as a tiny digital packet of information, one among trillions flying around the planet. See your office building as a small block in a vast city, the city as a speck on a continent, the continent on a world spinning in an endless void. The intense, sharp sting of the words begins to soften, losing its urgency and its weight. Now think back. Can you even remember a specific criticism you received 5 years ago? Not a general feeling, but the exact words and the person who said them. For most of us, those details have faded into a blur. The intense emotions we felt, the anger or the shame, have long since evaporated. The criticism that once felt like a world-ending event is now a forgotten footnote, if it is remembered at all. This is the ultimate proof of its temporary nature. The view from above grants you the gift of time travel, allowing you to see your present struggle from the peaceful vantage point of your future self, who has already moved on. That critical moment is not your entire story. It is merely a single sentence in a long and evolving chapter. The Stoics believed in rehearsing misfortune, including criticism, to disarm it. This ancient exercise, known as Premeditatio Malorum, is not about pessimism or expecting the worst to happen. It is a strategic form of mental vaccination. By deliberately imagining the criticism you might face, you inject a small, controlled dose of adversity into your mind. When the real thing arrives, your system is already prepared. The shock is gone, and you are left with a clear head to execute a rational response. Seneca powerfully championed this practice in his letters, writing that we should project our thoughts ahead of us at every turn and have in mind every possible eventuality. He argued that by foreseeing future troubles, we ensure they do not arrive unexpectedly, which robs them of their force. You are not trying to manifest bad outcomes. You are building a fireproof mental suit so you can walk through any emotional blaze without being burned. Here is how you apply this to criticism in your own life. Before your next important meeting or presentation, take just 5 minutes in a quiet space. Close your eyes and vividly imagine the scenario unfolding. Now picture the most challenging, critical response you could possibly receive. See the person's face, hear the tone of their voice, and listen to the specific, harsh words they use. Let the initial wave of discomfort wash over you in this safe, imagined space. Then shift your focus. Watch yourself in your mind's eye, responding not with anger or defensiveness, but with calm curiosity. You take a breath. You might say, "Thank you for that perspective. I will give it serious thought." Or you could ask a clarifying question to better understand their point. You have just run the drill. You have faced the monster in a simulation and discovered you have a protocol to handle it. This week, choose one situation where you anticipate possible feedback. It could be sharing a new idea with your team or even a difficult conversation with a family member. Premeditate the one piece of criticism you fear hearing most. Then write down or firmly decide upon your Stoic response in advance. Will you pause for 3 seconds before speaking? Will you acknowledge their point before offering your own? By planning this single, calm reaction, you are not preparing for a fight. You are programming your inner citadel's defense system. When you face the real world, you are no longer reacting from a place of raw emotion. You are simply following a plan you laid out in a state of peace. The criticism loses its power to throw you off course because you have already navigated this very path in your mind. You have transformed a potential ambush into a familiar road, one you know exactly how to travel. When criticism strikes, your most powerful initial tool is often silence. This is not the silence of defeat or submission, but the strategic, disciplined silence of a Stoic. It is the conscious choice to create a gap between the trigger and your reaction, a sacred space where reason can reclaim its throne from raw impulse. In that quiet moment, you are not being passive, you are being profoundly active. You are actively choosing not to be a puppet jerked by the strings of someone else's words. Seneca wrote with stark clarity on this, stating that the greatest remedy for anger is delay. He advised to postpone your response not for a week, but just until the initial heat cools, for anger is a passionate fire that dies down if it does not seize upon new fuel. A quick retort, a defensive email shot back in seconds, that is the new fuel. It feeds the fire until it becomes an uncontrollable blaze that burns everyone involved. Your silence, by contrast, starves the flame. It allows the logical, thoughtful part of your mind to assess the situation, to apply the objective judgment we discussed, and to craft a response aligned with your virtues instead of your vulnerabilities. Think of the last time you witnessed an argument escalate. It rarely happens because of the original criticism itself, but because of the rapid, unchecked volley of reactions that followed. Each person feeling attacked lashes out with more force, and the situation spirals into something far worse than it ever needed to be. Now, apply this to a modern scenario. You receive an email from a colleague that feels unfairly critical. Your fingers itch to type a fiery defense, to list all the reasons they are wrong, to prove your point. This is the impulse. The Stoic action is to close the email, stand up and walk away from your desk, get a glass of water, breathe. You have just enforced a pause. In that space, you move from being a reactor to being a commander. The criticism is no longer controlling you. You are controlling your relationship to it. The difference between a regretful, career-damaging reply and a professional, respected response can be measured in those few hours of deliberate silence. Make a commitment to yourself right now, a simple rule you can apply starting today. For any significant piece of criticism that sends a jolt through your system, institute a 24-hour rule. Promise yourself you will not formulate a final reply for one full day. Let the initial sting subside. Let your wiser, calmer mind come to the forefront. After that period of reflection, you can then decide if a response is even necessary, and if it is, you can craft one from a place of strength, not reactivity. That single day of waiting could save you from a world of unintended consequences. Treat every critic as a potential, albeit flawed, teacher, and your job is to find the lesson they are trying to offer. This is the proactive hunt for value, the final and most empowering step in the Stoic Playbook. You have already built your inner citadel, applied objective judgment, and created space with silence. Now you sift through the emotional debris of the criticism itself to extract a single, precious kernel of truth. The goal is not to accept the entire package, especially if it was delivered with malice or incompetence. It is to humbly search for the one thing, however small, that can make you better. The philosopher Epictetus gave us the ultimate mindset for this when he said that if someone tells you that you know nothing and you are not offended, then you have made a true start. He urged his students to be willing to learn from anyone because the truth can come from the most unexpected and even unpleasant messengers. Your growth depends on your ability to listen for that truth, no matter the package it arrives in. Think of it like panning for gold. You are standing in a river and someone dumps a bucket of mud and rocks onto your pan. Your initial reaction might be anger at the mess. But the Stoic response is to calmly swirl the pan, letting the mud and water wash away, while you carefully watch for the glint of a single gold flake. The mud is the harsh tone, the personal insult, the unfair generalization. The gold flake is the one specific, actionable piece of information you can actually use. Let's take a common, vague criticism like "you are not a team player." On its own, this is just mud. It is an emotional label that stings but offers no direction. Your task is to put on your investigator's hat and dissect it. What specific behaviors could have led someone to that conclusion? Did you consistently work through lunch instead of joining colleagues? Did you dismiss others' ideas in a meeting without offering alternatives? Did you fail to communicate a change that impacted someone else's work? By breaking down the vague label into concrete actions, you transform an insult into a checklist for self-reflection. You are not admitting you are a bad teammate. You are simply asking, is there any truth to the perception that my actions in one specific instance could have been more collaborative? Perhaps you discover that your intense focus was misinterpreted as aloofness. That single gold flake of insight is now yours to keep. It gives you the power to make a small, intentional change, like making a point to eat lunch with the team twice a week. That is how you turn a criticism into a catalyst for genuine improvement. Now, bring this home. Think of one piece of criticism you have received from a difficult or unpleasant person. Can you set aside your feelings about the messenger and honestly ask yourself, was there one single, actionable piece of advice hidden within their words? Maybe their harsh delivery obscured a valid point about a missed deadline or a communication habit. Finding that one grain of truth does not mean they were right about everything. It simply means you are strong enough and wise enough to learn from anyone, turning every encounter into fuel for your unstoppable motivation. For the Stoic, the only thing that can truly harm you is a failure of character, not someone's words. This is the bedrock of the entire philosophy, a truth that renders all external criticism powerless. Your reputation, your social standing, the praise or blame you receive from others, these are not goods in the Stoic view. They are merely preferred or dispreferred indifference. The only true good is your own virtue, the excellence of your character expressed through wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. When your moral core is strong and your intentions are aligned with what is right, no critical comment can touch the source of your worth. Epictetus put it with absolute clarity when he said that what upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about these things. Your judgment must be that your character is your sole concern, and that is an internal matter entirely under your command. Imagine a junior accountant who discovers a significant financial discrepancy. She knows reporting it will anger her powerful manager and likely draw criticism, even accusations of incompetence for not catching it sooner. Yet, she acts with courage and justice, filing the report because it is the right thing to do. The manager's subsequent anger, the harsh words, the potential damage to her reputation within that department, none of it can diminish the integrity of her action. Her virtue remains a shining, untarnished fact, a good that she alone possesses regardless of the external storm. Her confidence does not come from the manager's approval, but from her own knowledge that she acted correctly. She is anchored in her character, and that anchor holds fast against any wave of criticism. Think back to a moment in your own life when you chose to do the right thing, even when you knew it might be unpopular or misunderstood. Perhaps you defended a colleague who was being unfairly blamed, or you told a difficult truth when a lie would have been easier. Recall the quiet certainty that followed the initial anxiety. That feeling was the direct experience of your virtue, a confidence that no external opinion could take from you. That is the unshakable foundation upon which unstoppable motivation is built. That critical remark lands, and a story instantly flashes in your mind, a story where you are the villain or the fool. But that story is not a fact. It is only your initial, unchallenged impression. Between that first sting and your belief in it, there exists a crucial gap, a space of pure potential. This is where you practice the Stoic discipline of assent. It is the conscious act of withholding your agreement from a raw, emotional judgment. You feel the hurt, the anger, the defensiveness rise, but you do not immediately sign the contract that says this feeling is justified and this criticism is the absolute truth. The philosopher Epictetus trained his students relentlessly in this. He taught that appearances, these initial impressions, are not up to us. They will arise automatically. But our assent, our approval of them as true, that is absolutely within our power. He said that when any disturbing impression comes to you, you must have this rule ready at hand. Do not be carried away by it. Instead, say to the impression, wait for me a little. Let me see who you are and what you are about. Let me test you. You are not the impression itself. You are the gatekeeper deciding whether to let it in. Imagine your mind as a courtroom. A critical comment enters as a witness, making a dramatic, emotional claim. Your initial, untrained reaction is to immediately accept this testimony as gospel and hand down a guilty verdict against yourself. The discipline of assent is you, as the wise judge, banging your gavel and declaring, "The court will hear this testimony, but we will not rush to judgment. We will examine the evidence." This pause, this refusal to immediately agree, is your source of immense freedom. It means you are no longer a slave to every passing thought or feeling. In a practical sense, the next time a coworker says, "Your idea is not very creative," your internal monologue should not be a defeated, "They are right, I am not creative." Instead, it becomes a calm, observational statement. I assent to the fact that my coworker just spoke those specific words. I feel a sensation of heat in my face and tightness in my chest. I do not yet assent to the truth of their statement. I do not yet accept that my idea lacks creativity, nor do I accept that their definition of creativity is the only valid one. By labeling the internal event so precisely, you create distance. You are no longer the thought, you are the one observing the thought. This mental space, however brief, is where your power lies. It is the difference between being a leaf blown by the wind and being the tree, feeling the wind but remaining rooted. This week, choose one small, stinging remark you encounter. The moment you feel that familiar jolt, your only job is to create that pause. Do not try to solve the problem or craft the perfect reply. Simply notice the story your mind is trying to tell you and silently add the phrase, "I am having the thought that this is true." Just that slight shift in wording transforms the thought from a command into a suggestion, one you are now free to question, to test, and to ultimately decide upon with the full power of your reason. Stoicism teaches us the art of spiritual alchemy, turning the lead of criticism into the gold of motivation. This is the ultimate application of the principle that the impediment to action advances action. Marcus Aurelius insisted that what stands in the way becomes the way. The harsh feedback, the skeptical comment, the dismissive review, these are not roadblocks on your path. They are the very raw materials you need to pave a stronger, more resilient road forward. This is not passive acceptance, it is active, creative transformation. You take the negative energy directed at you and, through the furnace of your own will, convert it into a driving force. The criticism becomes a whetstone that sharpens your resolve, a mirror that reveals a blind spot you never knew you had, and a compass that points you with brutal honesty toward the exact skills you need to hone. Think of a young athlete who dreams of playing professionally. They get cut from their high school team, told they are just not good enough. In that moment, they have a choice. They can accept that verdict as a final judgment and quit, or they can perform the alchemy. They can take that rejection letter and tape it to their bedroom wall. Every morning when they wake up exhausted, that criticism is the first thing they see. It is no longer a source of pain, but a source of power. It fuels their early morning runs, their extra hours of practice, their relentless drive to improve. The obstacle of being cut did not end their journey, it defined it. It became the relentless motivation that propelled them to a level they might never have reached otherwise. Now bring this alchemy into your own life. Name one personal or professional goal you are currently working toward. It could be learning a new skill, starting a business, or improving a relationship. Now consider the doubt or criticism you have either received or fear receiving about this goal. How could you actively use that specific negative comment as fuel? If someone says you are not disciplined enough, let that be the reminder for every extra 15 minutes you spend working. If they say your idea is unrealistic, let that push you to research and plan with even greater detail. Do not just absorb the blow, redirect its force. The impediment is not just something to be overcome, it is the energy source for your ascent. Seneca wrote a powerful letter called On the Shortness of Life. His core message was that we are not given a short life, but we make it short by wasting it. Every hour you spend brooding over a harsh comment, replaying an argument in your mind, or nursing a grudge is an hour stolen from your finite and precious existence. That time is gone forever, a non-renewable resource spent on emotional poison. The Stoics saw life as a brief assignment, and resentment is a thief that breaks in and steals your most valuable possessions, your days and your peace. When you grasp the sheer brevity of it all, holding onto criticism becomes a ludicrously expensive luxury you simply cannot afford. Think of two people who receive the exact same piece of negative feedback at work. The first person lets it consume them. For 2 weeks they are distracted, their productivity plummets, and their evenings are filled with anxious thoughts and conversations about the unfairness of it all. The second person feels the sting, but quickly remembers the Stoic view from above. They acknowledge the feedback, extract one useful point, and then channel all that emotional energy into a tangible project, perhaps starting an online course to improve the very skill that was questioned. After 1 month, the first person has nothing to show but 2 weeks of misery and 2 weeks of trying to catch up. The second person has a new certificate, improved skills, and a renewed sense of purpose. The criticism was identical, but their relationship to time was completely different. Now, ask yourself this simple but profound question. The next time a critical comment tries to hijack your mind, what specific, meaningful action could you take in those same hours you might have spent feeling upset? You could read a chapter of a book that advances your knowledge. You could take the first concrete step toward a goal you have been postponing. You could even use that time to connect with someone you love. The choice is always yours, to either invest your limited time in resentment or to reinvest it in your own growth and happiness. The Stoics saw the universe as fundamentally rational. What if that difficult critic was placed in your path for a reason? This perspective moves beyond personal strategy and into a profound trust in a larger, benevolent order. The Stoics called this Providence, the idea that the cosmos is not a chaotic accident but an interconnected, intelligent whole where everything happens as it should for the ultimate good of the whole. Your life, with all its challenges and criticisms, is not a series of random misfortunes, but a carefully tailored curriculum for your soul. Marcus Aurelius constantly returned to this theme in his private writings, reminding himself to accept everything that the nature of the whole brings. He wrote that whatever happens to you was prepared for you beforehand, and the thread of your destiny was woven together with that event. From this vantage point, the critic is not your enemy, but an unlikely teacher sent by the universe itself to deliver a lesson you are ready to learn. Your job is not to fight the teacher, but to absorb the lesson. Think of a master woodcarver. She does not resent the grain of the wood, even when it is tough and difficult to work. She understands that the grain is an essential part of the material's strength and character. Her skill lies in working with the grain, not against it, to reveal the beautiful form hidden within. The criticism you face is like that grain. It is not a flaw in the material of your life, it is an intrinsic part of its structure. Fighting it only leads to splintering and breakage, while working with it allows you to carve a stronger, more resilient version of yourself. Can you recall a piece of past criticism that felt devastating in the moment, but that you now see led to a crucial positive change? Perhaps a manager's harsh feedback on your public speaking forced you to join a debate club, a skill that later won you a major promotion. Or maybe a friend's difficult comment about your negativity was the painful nudge you needed to seek therapy and transform your mental health. That criticism averted a future mistake by correcting your course in the present. It was a necessary part of your curriculum, even if the teacher seemed stern. The next time you feel the sting of a critical remark, practice this single, powerful phrase. Silently say to yourself, "This criticism is part of my training." This simple mantra does not mean the feedback is always correct or kindly given. It means you are choosing to see the situation through the lens of Providence. You are acknowledging that this moment, however uncomfortable, contains a lesson you are meant to learn. By trusting the larger tapestry, you stop resisting the thread and start weaving it into a stronger, more beautiful pattern of your own character. The ultimate freedom is to be unmoved by both the cheers and the jeers of the crowd. This Stoic ideal is not about becoming cold or unfeeling. It is about shifting the entire foundation of your motivation. It is the difference between a building anchored in solid rock and one built on shifting sand. When your sense of worth and drive comes from the applause, you are at the mercy of every critic's silence. When it comes from living in alignment with your own virtues, you achieve a profound and unshakable independence. The philosopher Epictetus captured this perfectly when he wrote that if anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said, but answer, "He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone." His point is devastatingly simple. If you know your own character and you are actively working to improve it, then another person's praise or blame is just a piece of data, often incomplete. To be elated by praise is as foolish as being dejected by blame, because both hand over control of your inner state to someone else. Consider a novelist who writes a book that becomes a surprise bestseller. The praise is intoxicating, the reviews are glowing. For a year, she is the darling of the literary world. Then her next book is released, and the critics are harsh, the sales are modest. If her motivation was tied to that external validation, she is now lost in a desert of doubt. But if her motivation comes from the intrinsic value of the act of writing itself, from the virtue of expressing truth as she sees it, then the public reception becomes almost irrelevant. She continues her work with the same passion and discipline whether the crowd is cheering or silent. Her joy is in the craft, not the trophy. This week, make a quiet pact with yourself. Choose one small act to perform purely for its intrinsic value, with no concern for how it will be perceived. Maybe you will spend an hour sketching, not to post it online, but for the simple pleasure of creating a line. Perhaps you will organize a closet, not for anyone to see, but for the personal satisfaction of order. In that small, intentional act, you will feel the first stirrings of a deeper motivation, one that no critic can ever silence. While others criticize you, the most valuable critic should be the one in the mirror, your own reasoned self. This internal judge operates not from a place of anger or ego, but from a calm commitment to your own growth. The Stoics formalized this practice into a powerful nightly ritual known as the evening review. It is a deliberate audit of your day, guided by virtue instead of vanity. Seneca described his own version of this in his letters, writing that he would examine his entire day each night before sleep. He would ask himself, "What evils have you cured yourself of today? What vices have you fought?" This was not an exercise in self-punishment, but a systematic method of self-correction. By holding your own actions up to the light of your principles, you disarm every external critic. Their words become mere echoes of a conversation you are already having with yourself, a conversation that is far more thorough and compassionate. The goal is to become so honest with yourself about your own progress and missteps that outside opinions lose their power to shock or destabilize you. You are already aware of your own areas for improvement. Imagine ending your day not by scrolling through a screen, but by sitting in quiet reflection for just 5 minutes. The process is simple but profound. Ask yourself 3 clear questions. First, where did I act with virtue today? Perhaps you showed courage by speaking up in a difficult meeting, or demonstrated justice by giving a colleague full credit for their idea. Acknowledging these moments reinforces your commitment to your core values. Second, and this is the crucial part, where did I fall short of my own standards? Be specific and dispassionate. Did I react with defensiveness to that feedback instead of listening? Did I waste an hour on resentment that I could have spent on learning? This is not about guilt, it is about gathering data. The third question is where the motivation is born. How can I improve tomorrow? This turns reflection into a plan. If you fell short in patience, your plan might be to take 3 deep breaths before responding to any critique tomorrow. This nightly ritual transforms you from a passive recipient of criticism into the active architect of your own character. Tonight, before you sleep, try this practice. Lie in the dark and revisit one moment from today where you faced criticism. Examine your reaction through this Stoic lens. Did your response align with your virtues? What one small adjustment could you make next time? This is how you build an inner citadel so strong that the noise outside the walls becomes nothing more than a distant whisper. The Stoics had a secret for acting with boldness while maintaining inner peace, the reserve clause. This mental tool is a quiet addendum you attach to every single endeavor you undertake. You commit your entire effort, you pour your energy and focus into the task while simultaneously holding in your heart the phrase, fate permitting. You are doing your part with excellence, but you are releasing your tight grip on the specific result you demand from the world. This is how you detach from outcomes, whether they are praise, silence, or harsh criticism. The ancient Stoics spoke of cooperating with the universal nature, of doing your duty while leaving the final outcome to the gods. In modern terms, it means you control your effort, your integrity, and your preparation, but you do not control the market's response, your boss's mood, or the public's opinion. By building this acceptance into the plan from the very beginning, you immunize yourself against the despair of failure and the intoxication of success. Both become simply data points, not definitions of your worth. Imagine a software developer launching a new application. She has worked for months, coding late into the night, testing every feature and polishing the user interface. She has given her absolute best. Now she applies the reserve clause. She launches the app, but her inner monologue is not. This must be a wild success and get 5-star reviews. Instead, it is, I have done my work well, and I am prepared for the app to be celebrated, ignored, or heavily criticized, fate permitting. When the first critical review lands, calling the interface clunky, there is no collapse. The criticism is not a deviation from her plan. It is one of the potential outcomes she had already accepted. She can now engage with that feedback from a place of calm curiosity, not personal devastation. She can ask, what can I learn from this, without her entire sense of self being wrapped up in the answer. Her motivation remains intact because it was rooted in the quality of her effort, not the fickleness of the result. Think of a goal you are deeply invested in right now. Now take a quiet moment and mentally rehearse the reserve clause. Silently add fate permitting to your vision of success. Visualize not only achieving your goal, but also graciously accepting an outcome that includes setbacks or criticism. How does that shift your feeling about the journey? This practice does not dilute your ambition, it fortifies it. It allows you to act with courageous effort while carrying an unshakable peace, no matter what the world returns to you. In a moment of criticism, ask yourself, what would a perfectly rational and virtuous person do here? The Stoics offered a guiding star for this very question, the ideal of the sage. This figure represents the pinnacle of human wisdom, someone who navigates life with perfect logic, unwavering courage, and complete inner peace. While becoming a perfect sage is an impossible standard for any human, aiming toward that ideal transforms our reactions. We are not trying to become emotionless robots, but to embody the most grounded and effective version of ourselves. The sage, when faced with a harsh comment, would first listen with complete calm, allowing the words to be heard without an internal storm of defensiveness. They would then dissect the feedback with objective precision, separating the factual core from the emotional delivery. Any useful data, however small, would be pocketed for later reflection. The sage might even thank the critic for their perspective, not as empty politeness, but as a genuine acknowledgement that every interaction holds potential for learning. Then, with their equanimity fully intact, they would simply move forward, carrying the lesson without the lingering weight of resentment. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands unmoved, and the raging of the sea falls still around it. The sage is that rock. Imagine a coworker snaps at you in front of others, accusing you of dropping the ball on a project. The immediate human reaction is to snap back to defend your reputation, but your inner sage takes a slow breath. They hear the accusation, but they also hear the frustration behind it. They respond not with a counterattack, but with measured clarity. You might say, "I hear your frustration, and I want to understand what happened from your perspective so we can fix it." This response does not admit fault prematurely. It demonstrates control, seeks objective information, and de-escalates the situation entirely. It reflects the sage's courage to face conflict without flinching, and the wisdom to know that truth is best found in calm inquiry, not in a shouting match. Now close your eyes for just a moment and visualize your own inner sage. See them standing with perfect posture, their face a mask of serene focus. They are listening to the words of your most difficult critic. Watch how they process the information. Observe the calm in their eyes, the lack of tension in their shoulders. How does this version of you respond? What specific, gracious words do they use? By giving this ideal a face and a voice in your mind, you are not pretending to be perfect. You are building a new mental model, a blueprint for your own growth that turns every critic into an opportunity to practice being just a little more wise, a little more courageous, and a little more free. History is filled with Stoic figures who transformed torrents of criticism into legacies of greatness. Cato the Younger, a Roman senator famous for his stubborn integrity, made himself a living symbol of opposition to the corruption of Julius Caesar. Caesar's political machine constantly attacked and mocked Cato, yet Cato wore this criticism as a badge of honor. His very unpopularity with the powerful was proof he was upholding his principles. He thrived on the opposition, using it to fuel his relentless defense of the Roman Republic, demonstrating that a life lived with virtue is its own victory, regardless of public opinion. Then there is Seneca, the philosopher and advisor to the Emperor Nero. He operated in the most treacherous court in the world, surrounded by envy and backstabbing. He wrote his profound letters and essays on Stoicism not in peaceful retirement, but while navigating a daily storm of political intrigue and the constant threat of his unstable pupils' disfavor. His entire body of work is a testament to finding inner peace amid external chaos, a direct product of the criticism and danger he faced every single day. For a more modern parallel, consider Nelson Mandela. While not a formal Stoic, his 27 years in prison could have crushed his spirit. Instead, he treated his captors' harsh criticism and the world's injustice as fuel. He emerged not with bitterness, but with a greater resolve for reconciliation and leadership, stating that the greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. This is the Stoic spirit in action. Marcus Aurelius provides perhaps the most intimate example. He wrote his private journal, now known as the Meditations, not in a quiet library, but during exhausting military campaigns on the front lines of the Roman Empire. He faced constant pressure from usurpers, criticism from the Senate, and the immense burden of ruling a vast, troubled world. His most profound insights on accepting criticism and focusing on your own duty were penned by firelight in a military tent, surrounded by the very adversity he wrote about. He was literally using the obstacle as his writing desk. These figures all understood a core Stoic truth, that difficulty is not a detour but the path itself. Which historical figures' quiet resilience in the face of loud criticism most resonates with your own challenges? Their stories prove that the most lasting monuments are often built from the very stones thrown at them. The Stoics' most powerful tool for processing life's challenges, including criticism, was their journal. This was not a diary for venting emotions, but a workshop for the mind, a private training ground where raw experience was forged into wisdom. Think of it as your personal laboratory, a safe space to dissect a critical comment with surgical precision, away from the heat of the moment. You move from being a passive recipient of words to an active investigator of their meaning. The goal is to systematically break down the event, apply your Stoic principles, and walk away with a clear, actionable plan that fuels your motivation instead of draining it. Marcus Aurelius himself provided the ultimate model for this practice. His masterpiece, Meditations, was never intended for publication. It was his private journal, written during grueling military campaigns, filled with reminders to himself about how to live with virtue amid chaos, criticism, and immense pressure. He was literally journaling his way through his own obstacles, using the page to reinforce his principles and reframe his challenges. You can do the same with the criticism you face. Let us build a practical template for a criticism reframing journal entry. Start with the first heading, the event. Here, you write a simple, objective account of what happened, stripping away all emotion and judgment. For example, my manager said in our one-on-one meeting that my last report was difficult to follow and missed 2 key deadlines. Next, under my initial reaction, you honestly document your internal storm. My face felt hot. I immediately felt defensive and thought, this is unfair. I worked so hard on that. I felt angry and embarrassed. This step is crucial. It acknowledges the feeling without letting it rule you. Now move to the core of the practice, Stoic analysis. This is where you apply your tools. First, apply the dichotomy of control. The words my manager spoke are an external, outside my control. My defensive feelings are an internal impression, and my choice of response is within my control. Second, search for the kernel of truth. Was the report truly as clear as it could have been? Did I, in fact, miss those 2 deadlines? This is where you pan for gold, looking for the single, actionable piece of data. Finally, plan a virtuous response. Based on my analysis, I will schedule a brief follow-up with my manager. I will thank them for the feedback, ask for one specific example of where the report was unclear, and outline my plan for ensuring deadlines are met in the future. This demonstrates courage, wisdom, and a commitment to improvement. Your final heading is my new perspective. Here, you synthesize the entire exercise into a single, empowering reframe. This criticism was not an attack on my worth. It was valuable data that revealed a blind spot in my communication and time management. It gives me a clear path to become more reliable and effective in my role. The obstacle has become the way forward. Your journal is the bridge between Stoic philosophy and your daily life. It turns abstract principles into lived experience. This week, find a notebook or open a blank document. Think of one piece of past criticism that still occupies space in your mind. Now, give it a new home on the page and walk through this template. What hidden motivation will you uncover when you transform that old sting into a structured plan for growth? Stoic courage is not merely bravery in battle, but the moral strength to stand in the arena of your own life and risk being seen. It is the willingness to be imperfect, to be a work in progress openly on display. Every time you share a new idea, pursue a promotion, or create something from nothing, you are stepping into that arena. Growth is not a private affair. It requires vulnerability, and criticism is often the unavoidable price of ambition. The Roman philosopher Seneca touched on this when he wrote that sometimes even to live is an act of courage. He was not just speaking of survival, but of the daily courage it takes to engage with a world that will inevitably challenge you. This is the courage to face the fear of social judgment, to endure the discomfort of not being immediately good at something, and to do it anyway because your purpose is greater than your pride. Think of an artist who has spent months on a painting, a piece of their soul rendered in color. The moment they decide to hang it in a gallery for public view, they are exercising profound Stoic courage. They know the work is not flawless. They know some will not understand it, and others may openly dislike it. Yet they display it regardless because the act of creation demands an audience to be complete. The potential for critique is not a deterrent. It is an essential part of the creative contract. They are not folding in the face of potential judgment. They are using the very possibility of it as fuel to validate their own effort and bravery. Where in your own life is the fear of criticism holding you back from a meaningful step? Is there a skill you are hesitant to learn because you would start as a beginner? Is there a project or idea you keep private out of fear it will be picked apart? Identify that one area. Now define a single, small act of courage you can take this week. It does not need to be a gallery opening. It could be speaking up in a meeting with a tentative idea, sharing a draft with a trusted colleague, or finally starting that online course you have been eyeing. That one small step, taken with the full awareness of your own imperfection, is where unstoppable motivation truly begins. A powerful model can help you visualize exactly where to direct your energy when criticism arrives. Picture two concentric circles. The massive outer ring is your circle of concern. This is where everything that worries or bothers you lives, including the critic's harsh words, their tone of voice, their possible hidden motives, and the opinions of everyone else who might hear about it. It is a vast, noisy space filled with events and reactions you cannot control. Nestled inside it is a smaller, more potent circle, your circle of influence. This is your domain of power, containing only what you truly command, your own thoughts, your judgments, and your deliberate responses. This modern framework has deep Stoic roots. It is a direct and practical application of the dichotomy of control. The moment a critical comment is made, it instantly lands in that large, outer circle of concern. You cannot pull it back. You cannot control the fact that it was said. But your next move, your decision to breathe, to listen, to analyze, and to choose a virtuous response, that action is born entirely within your smaller, powerful circle of influence. Every ounce of energy you pour into the outer circle, fretting over why they said it or how unfair it was, is energy drained from your real power source. It is like trying to change the weather by shouting at the clouds, but every bit of focus you invest in your inner circle, on crafting a calm and purposeful reaction is energy that builds unstoppable motivation and tangible growth. Think of a time you received a negative comment on a social media post. The comment itself and the person who wrote it belong firmly in your circle of concern. You have no control over their keyboard or their opinion. Your circle of influence contains your choice to either ignore it, to reply with grace, to consider if there is a sliver of truth in it, or to simply use the irritation as fuel to create your next piece of work. Spending hours obsessing over the commenter's profile or drafting angry replies is energy lost to the outer circle. Choosing to channel that same energy into improving your next project is a direct investment in your inner circle, making it stronger and more resilient. This week, take a literal piece of paper and draw these two circles for yourself. Think of one specific criticism that is still on your mind. Write that event in the large outer circle, acknowledging it as an external fact. Then, in the smaller inner circle, write down 3 responses you control, such as, I choose to look for one useful lesson, I decide to practice my calm breathing, or I will use this feeling to fuel my practice for an hour. Seeing this map makes your power undeniable, transforming a vague worry into a clear plan of action. The Stoics kept a skull on their desk. Why? To remember Memento Mori, the stark and humbling reminder that you will die. This practice was not about morbidity, but about piercing clarity. It instantly vaporizes the petty grievances and the sting of harsh words that we cling to so desperately. In the face of your own inevitable end, how much power does that one critical email truly hold? The answer is almost none. Marcus Aurelius urged himself to perform each action as if it were the last action of your life. He was not suggesting a state of frantic panic, but a profound focus. If this were your final day, would you spend it fuming over a co-worker's remark, or would you spend it connected to what gives your life meaning? The awareness of mortality is the ultimate filter, separating the trivial noise from the essential signal. It forces you to ask, is this resentment worth the irreplaceable breath in my lungs? Tonight, before you sleep, try this mental exercise. Lie in the quiet and reflect. If you were to die tonight, that critical comment from your morning meeting would be utterly meaningless. Its power to haunt you, to steal your peace, would vanish into nothing. All that would remain is the love you gave, the work you are proud of, the moments of genuine connection. This is not a dark thought, it is a liberating one. It frees you from the prison of other people's opinions. If your time was desperately limited, what would you actually focus on instead? Would you finally write that first chapter? Would you call the friend you have been meaning to reconnect with? Would you simply sit and watch the sunset without a screen in your hand? Memento Mori does not make life seem short and pointless. It makes it precious and urgent. It commands you to stop wasting your most finite resource, your time, on the echoes of criticism that will be forgotten long before your life is over. From a Stoic viewpoint, every critic, even a malicious one, is inadvertently playing a role in the cosmic society. This perspective hinges on a profound Stoic principle known as Sympatheia, the belief that all things in the universe are woven together in a web of mutual interdependence. Just as individual limbs serve the health of the entire body, each person, through their actions, contributes to the whole in ways we cannot always immediately see. The critic, then, is not an isolated enemy hurling insults from outside the walls. They are another part of the same universal body, and their feedback, however poorly delivered, is a form of interaction that provides you with an irreplaceable opportunity. It is your chance to practice the virtues of patience, courage, and wisdom right here in the real world. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to accept even bothersome people, because just as the fire uses whatever log you throw on it, our own character can use the obstacle of another person's behavior to grow brighter and stronger. The critic becomes the log that fuels your inner fire. When you encounter a harsh online commenter, your first instinct may be to see a faceless troll. The Stoic exercise is to briefly look past the words and see a person. This individual is almost certainly flawed, acting from a place of their own ignorance, pain, or misguided passion. They are not a monster, but a human being who has lost their way, lashing out from the confusion of their own inner turmoil. Your job is not to fix them or to accept their abuse, but to understand this context. This understanding is the key that unlocks detachment. It allows you to receive the words without absorbing the poison. As a practical exercise in this understanding, try a brief mental ritual the next time a criticism stings. After you have taken your strategic pause, consciously wish that person well. You do not need to agree with them or even like them. Silently offer a simple, genuine thought, such as, "I hope you find the peace you are clearly lacking." This is not about being falsely nice. It is a powerful act of reclaiming your own inner freedom. By wishing well for someone who has acted poorly, you are proving that their actions have no power to corrupt your character or dictate your emotional state. You are demonstrating that your capacity for goodwill is stronger than their capacity for ill will. For just a moment, you see them not as a critic, but as a fellow, struggling human being, and in doing so, you complete your own training for the day. The final step in the Stoic Playbook is to pivot from analysis to action. Let's turn that criticism into a concrete plan. All the mental reframing, the objective judgment, the search for a kernel of truth, it remains an intellectual exercise until it fuels a tangible step forward. Motivation is not a feeling you wait for, it is a force you generate through movement. The Stoics understood that knowledge without application is barren. True wisdom is seen in the choices you make and the life you live. A Stoic proverb captures this perfectly, stating that the fruit of wisdom is good deeds, not fine words. Your deep analysis of the criticism is the fine words. The good deed is the single, decisive action you take because of it. This is where you complete the alchemy, transforming the leaden weight of a harsh comment into the gold of personal progress. The energy you once spent on resentment and defensiveness is now redirected, becoming the propellant for your own improvement. Think of a musician who receives feedback that their timing is off during complex solos. The Stoic analysis is complete. They have accepted the feedback without ego and identified the core issue. The motivational pivot is the decision to take that insight and book a weekly session with a metronome, dedicating 30 minutes each day to rhythmic drills. The criticism did not break them, it gave them a clearer, more focused practice routine. Here is how you make this pivot in your own life. Take that one piece of criticism you have been working with. You have already stripped it of its emotional charge and found a potential kernel of truth. Now, ask yourself one powerful question. What is the single, smallest, most immediate action I can take to address this? The action must be specific, measurable, and achievable today. If the feedback was that your presentations are disorganized, your action is not a vague, "I will be more organized." That is a wish, not a plan. Your Stoic action is, "I will spend 20 minutes this afternoon outlining my next presentation using the 3-part structure my manager suggested." If the criticism was about a communication habit, your action could be, "In my next team meeting, I will make a conscious effort to let each person finish their sentence before I speak." The scale of the action is irrelevant. It is the act of doing that matters. It proves to yourself that you are in command, that you can use any feedback, any obstacle, as raw material for your own growth. Now bring this home. Identify one piece of recent criticism, and in this moment commit to one small action it inspires. Do not make it grand, make it real. Will you watch one tutorial to improve the skill that was questioned? Will you reorganize one shelf to bring order to a chaotic space? That first step, no matter how modest, is where unstoppable motivation is truly born. It is the moment you stop being a person who is criticized and start being a person who is constantly, proactively getting better. You have walked a long road from that initial sting of a harsh word. You began by seeing criticism as a personal attack, a verdict on your worth that left you feeling defensive and defeated. Now you stand equipped with a Stoic playbook that transforms that same criticism into your most reliable source of fuel. This entire journey hinges on a few profound mental shifts. You learn to slice reality with the dichotomy of control, placing the critic's words firmly outside your command and your reasoned response squarely within it. You practiced Amor Fati, learning to love your fate by searching for the hidden gift in every piece of feedback. You adopted the stance of objective judgment, auditing criticism with the calm precision of a scientist rather than the raw emotion of a wounded ego. And through it all, you mastered the art of turning the obstacle upside down, using the very thing meant to stop you as the stepping stone to push you forward. This is not about developing a thick skin, it is about forging an unbreakable inner core. The Stoic path offers a liberation that is both quiet and immense. It is the freedom that comes from knowing your motivation is no longer dependent on the cheers or the jeers of the crowd, but is self-generated from a deep well of virtue and purpose. You are no longer a leaf blown by the wind of opinion, you are the tree, deeply rooted and drawing strength from every storm. The Roman philosopher Seneca offered a powerful compass for this journey when he wrote that the best revenge is to not be like the person who injured you. Do not become bitter, do not become cynical, do not descend to their level. The ultimate response to criticism is to become so focused on your own growth, so committed to your own virtue, that you simply outgrow the need to ever see your critic as an enemy. Your improvement becomes your answer, so I leave you with one final, reflective question. As you walk away from this video, what single Stoic tool from this playbook will you commit to implementing first? Will you practice the strategic pause before you reply to that next difficult email? Will you start a nightly journal to dissect the day's feedback? Or will you simply begin each endeavor with the reserve clause, fate permitting, firmly in your heart? The first step is yours to take. Thank you for sharing this time with me. I would love to hear about your own experiences in the comments below. Tell me about a moment you successfully reframed criticism, or share the one Stoic idea that has already started to change your perspective. Your journey is just beginning.